So I wasn't going to do this video. I had a lot of people on Facebook, on Instagram, WhatsApp asking me how I am, how am I doing? Because they know that I'm in Colombia. They knew that I was in Medellin. And so because everyone is asking, and I've answered a few people, and I felt bad. There were some people on Facebook that asked me questions. I don't use Facebook very often. I will post this on Facebook, but I don't use Facebook very often. And so I just want to talk a little bit about my situation in Medellin during the earthquake. And thank God nothing happened, but I will tell you, it was pretty big. Okay. If you guys don't know, I'm from California. And so I've been through a lot of earthquakes over the years, but this was the biggest earthquake that I've ever experienced. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience. And then I also want to talk about some of the things that I learned and some of the things that if you're traveling, some of the things that you need to do before you travel just to be prepared for situations like this. And so I think the first thing that we need to do is kind of get an understanding of Colombia and where Medellin is compared to the epicenter. So here's Medellin up here, and the epicenter was in this area here. It was close to Pereira. It was close to Manizales. Chocó is here. So it was close to Chocó as well. And so you can see in the red here, this is the epicenter. You see in the orange, these areas were still impacted by the earthquake, but in Medellin, it was about a 6.4, okay? And the other areas, it was a 7.4. In the red, it was 7.4. That's why you're seeing a lot of news focusing on Pereira, focusing on Manizales, focusing on Chocó, because that is where the most of the damage was. Okay, now as far as in Medellin, I haven't really heard of any damage in Medellin, but when it comes to Chocó, especially Quibdó, they were really impacted, and Pereira as well as Manizales. So that just gives you an idea. Here's Bogota here, that's the capital. So it looks like Bogota was impacted a little bit. Medellin is not on this map, but Medellin would be up in this area here. And so hopefully that gives you a better visual picture of what areas were impacted the most. Okay, now I want to talk about my situation, the story. So it was about 7:30 is when the earthquake started. And I was in bed. So 7:30 a.m., I'm laying in bed. I feel a little rocking, but I was sleeping. So when I woke up, I'm just thinking, it just felt like someone was moving me in the bed, basically. That's the way it felt. And so it moved a little bit and I woke up. And when I woke up, I always do this with earthquakes. I don't know, maybe because I'm in California and we feel a lot of earthquakes. When I feel that earthquake, when I feel it shaking and I realize that it's an earthquake, I usually lay in bed to see, okay, is it just going to be a short little earthquake? Because in California, we do have earthquakes, but a lot of times it's just like a big jolt and then it rumbles a little bit, moves a little bit, and then it just stops. So it might be 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And so I was laying in bed to just thinking, okay, is this going to be just a little, short earthquake? It's not going to last that long. And so I lay in bed for probably about 10, 15 seconds. It's still moving. Mind you, I'm on a higher floor in an apartment building. Okay, so and this is the first time I've been in an apartment building on a high floor during an earthquake, because when I'm in California, I'm in my house. My house is 2 stories, but it's not the same, because the higher up you are in these apartment buildings, the more that you're going to sway, especially the newer apartment buildings, because they're built to kind of move with the earthquake. And so 10, 15 seconds, I'm laying in bed, it's still moving. And now I'm thinking, okay, this is not going to stop anytime soon. And so I go ahead, I get up. And when I get up, I get in the doorway. And I get in the doorway. I have big windows in the apartment. And so I get in the doorway that's kind of in the center of the apartment. And so I'm in the doorway and it starts to really start moving. And at this point, I'm just going back and forth. And at first I'm thinking, okay, it's been going on now for about 30 seconds. It should be stopping any minute, but it didn't. And what really started to concern me is, and what I did is I'm sitting there, I'm in the doorway holding myself up, but I'm thinking, okay, well, let me turn on my camera. Of course, I have my phone in my hand, so let me turn that on. So I turn the camera on my phone and I start recording. And I didn't really start to get concerned until it started going past. It's like 45 seconds. Now it's going on to a minute. And now I start hearing alarms going on. Outside of my apartment, they're building a hotel. And you have this big crane that's like pretty much at the same level I am, a little bit higher than where I am. You have that crane there, and then you have people that were working. And in Colombia, they start working early. So they're working like 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. They generally don't wait till like 8 in the morning to start doing construction. So I already heard that they were doing the construction. I could hear it. And so I started hearing alarms coming from the construction site, basically telling them, hey, you need to, look for cover. And so when I started hearing that, I got a little concerned. And then what made me even more concerned is I started hearing the noise of the building. You start hearing it cracking and moving. And I have hardwood floor, so I started to feel it like moving, which is really crazy. And you can hear that creaking sound. And And as I stated, I'm on a high floor, so I'm thinking, okay, I got to stay where I am. And I know some people even told me, well, why didn't you just run out of the building? Well, running out of the building is not as easy as just running out of the building. I have to run down the hallway. I have to go down the stairs and, flights of stairs. It'd probably take me, even if I was running, it would probably still take me 2 minutes to 3 minutes to get out. And so that's why I decided I'm staying in place. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to ride this out. Hopefully this building is strong enough to hold us. And this is a more modern building. And so it's about maybe 15 years old, something like that. And I knew that these buildings were designed to move with the earthquake. And so I just stayed in here. And that earthquake lasted for at least 1 minute and 45 seconds, at least, because I didn't start recording until 45 seconds in. And I recorded for at least a minute before it stopped. So when it stopped, I said, okay, I need to get out. And so that's when I grabbed all my stuff and went downstairs. And when I went downstairs, of course, there were other people that were sitting outside. And this is another thing too, that I didn't really think about. I don't watch the news in Colombia. I generally use like a Fire Stick. So I'm watching the news in the US. And so I don't have cable to watch the news. And so that's problematic because you don't really know what's going on. What are people saying? And so I reached out to my friends and told them, hey, look, did you guys feel the earthquake? Because I sure felt it. And they were telling me, yes, they felt it. And that was good that I reached out to them because there could be some aftershocks, which I already anticipated there could be aftershocks, but they were giving us actually time frames, like 9 a.m., there could be another aftershock. So don't go back in the building until after that time. And so I was able to get some information from my friends. And so I stayed out. I stayed out until probably around 10, maybe 11 a.m. And then I went back in. And then I gathered some more of my stuff, my computer and stuff like that. And then I just went over to the mall and just did some work. I wanted to be away from the building for a while. I didn't want to be near the building. But I will tell you, as I stated, I'm from California. We've been through a lot of earthquakes. I remember Northridge earthquake. I remember that was a pretty big one. But the feeling that I had in this earthquake was much stronger than anything that I've experienced, anything. And it made me start thinking about things like, okay, you want to stay in an apartment complex, you want to stay in the high buildings. And if you guys don't know, in Medellin, Medellin is known for these high-rise apartment complexes. They don't really have, like in the US, we might have an apartment complex, but it's almost like it's maybe 4 levels and then it's just spread out. They don't have a lot of apartment complexes that are like that are spread out. Most of them are just high rise, 20 stories or even higher than that. And that's very normal. And Medellin is built, you have the mountains that surround you, and you have some of these apartment complexes that are just all up around. Just think of a bowl, and you have the apartment complexes that go up that hill in the bowl, and then in the very center, that's El Poblado. That's the major area there. But now I want to talk about what I've learned. The first thing, and I always do this, but I was a little unprepared this time, but I always have like a go bag. So I always have a little bag that has just things that I absolutely need, like my passport. When it comes to water, I usually have one of those little water bottles. I'll have that in there. I'll have a little flashlight if I bring one. I'll have things that I need. If I needed to just get out of the apartment really fast, I'll have those things. And I usually always have the water bottle filled with water. This time I didn't. Okay, so that was one of the mistakes that I made, but I did have all my stuff there. So all I need to do is grab that, grab my water bottle, put water in it, and leave. But that's one thing that I would recommend. And make sure you have some type of a light source, because when you're traveling, you don't know what the infrastructure is like. In Medellin, the infrastructure is very good. You don't get a lot of power outages, and if you do get a power outage, it's very short. But in other parts of Colombia, I've been in La Guajira, I've been in Barranquilla, where it seems like every week there's a power outage, and it's not planned. It's just happens. All righty, so we are sitting in the dark. Actually, power just went out. And this was to be expected. It scared me there, that little lizard. They got these lizards everywhere. So we are in complete darkness. There's no power anywhere. And so you want to make sure when you're traveling, anywhere I travel, I went to Thailand, same situation in Thailand, power outage. Thailand, the power went out and it was out for like the whole day. And so sometimes you'll be in situations like that. So make sure you have some type of a light source. I used to carry a flashlight, but now I get the little lights that you can put on your phone. Like if you want to do a selfie, like record or whatever. I like those because just the form factor. It's big. I could set it down. It'll light up the whole room if I want to. I can have it on my phone, and it's a lot bigger than the little light that you already have on your phone. And so I can use that just kind of like a flashlight. And I also like it because I can recharge it. I don't have to worry about batteries. And if I have a battery bank, I can use it with the battery bank, and it could last the whole night if I really needed it to. And so now let's talk about what you need to do as soon as you book your flight. As soon as you book your flight, you book your Airbnb where you're staying, you need to do this. And the first thing that I recommend that you do is go over to the U.S. Department of State, and you're going to look for the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. All you need to do is put STEP Travel, and it will come up. And the reason why you want to do this, and if you look at the top here, it's even giving us information that says Colombia earthquake, Americans in Colombia, basically saying Americans in Colombia, if you need assistance, you can call this number. You can also, when you fill out, because basically what you're doing here is you're going to enroll, and you're going to tell them where you're staying. You're going to provide your phone number so they can send you text messages if they need to, and they'll send you text messages when it comes to earthquakes. They'll also send you text messages when it comes to civil unrest and things like that. This last time I opted out of the text messages, so I don't know what they sent during the earthquake. But in the past, I have opted in, and they will send you these different text messages. So I highly recommend signing up for the STEP program. And what's also good about the STEP program is they know where you are. If you need to be evacuated out for whatever reason, they know where you're staying, they have your phone number, and so they can make arrangements that way. And so that's another thing that's good. Generally, if you're staying in a hotel, you know when you stay in a hotel, they always get your passport, and they take a copy of your passport. They should be reporting that to the U.S. Embassy, but they might not, so you don't know. But if you sign up for the STEP program, they're going to know exactly where you are. And the next thing that I recommend, and I've been recommending this for years. Now, when I first started traveling, I didn't. Back in 2012, that's the first time I left the country. I actually came to Colombia. And on that trip, I didn't have travel insurance. But I quickly learned that travel insurance is something that's very important. So if you are traveling, get travel insurance because it's going to help you. And let me just show you. I use travelinsurance.com. I'm not being sponsored by them or anything, but this is just a site that I've been using for years. And all you need to do is put in your information. So how much your trip costs, the destination, the dates that you're going to be leaving, how many people are you going to be traveling with, and then where are you coming from? So the United States, what state you currently reside in. So once you put in all that information, then you're going to get a list of different insurance companies that will insure you for travel. And I just put this together as a scenario. So this is just for 2 weeks. And the things that I'm focused on, I'm not really focused. And if I zoom in here, hopefully you can see this a little bit better. I'm not too focused on trip cancellation, trip interruption. Those two things I'm not really focused on because I use credit cards generally when I'm booking my travel, and most of my credit cards will have that built in. So I have these travel credit cards that I use. But I am focused on medical evacuation, very important, emergency medical. So if there's a situation where I get injured, let's say during this earthquake, I was injured and I had to go to the hospital. Well, you go to the hospital here, your insurance, unless you have international insurance, and most of us don't have international insurance, we have insurance for the US. And so it will work in the US. It's not going to work here. And so what that means is you have to pay out of pocket, and they won't let you leave until you pay for the services. Now, the services might not be that expensive, but you still have to pay out of pocket. However, if you have travel insurance, you might have to pay out of pocket up front, but then you'll be reimbursed by the insurance company up to $100,000 per person. And there's a zero deductible here. So that's good. And then you also have the baggage loss. I'm not really concerned too much about that. Flight accident, so there's no coverage for that. Accidental death, there's no coverage for that. But then that medical evacuation, that's something that's also very important. Because if you find yourself in a situation where you're severely injured and you need to be medevaced out of the country, then that's where this plays a role, because that's what, here's $250,000. And just think, if you don't have travel insurance, you're going to have to pay that cost to be medevaced out of the country into the US or wherever they're going to take you. Generally what they say is, let's say you have head trauma and they don't have a facility in the country that you're in to treat this head trauma, then they'll medevac you out to the nearest place where they can treat you for that trauma. And so that's something else to note. And you also look at the price. It's really not that much. You're talking $58 here, and that's for 2 weeks, $69 here, and they all show you the different coverages. The reason that I like using travelinsurance.com is because they will give me different insurance companies. Because another way that you can do this is you can just book it. When you book your airfare, you can, usually they'll ask you at that last page, they're going to ask you, do you want travel insurance? And you can book the travel insurance there. It's usually a little bit cheaper, but you don't see what they cover right away. I think you might be able to click on learn more, and they might show you a little bit more information. Generally, the coverage is not as good as if you go on travelinsurance.com and you search it yourself, because you literally are picking what you want. And some of the prices aren't going to, like, let's say it's $78 here. If it's $78, you're still getting some of the same coverage, but look at medical evacuation. Medical evacuation is $500,000 per person. Emergency medicals now $250,000. The other one was, I believe it was $100,000 for emergency medical. So you can kind of determine what you want. Do you want to pay $78? Is that better than paying the $69 or the $58, because you get more when it comes to your medical coverage? And so these are all things to think about. And now that I've experienced, this is the first time I've experienced an earthquake outside of the US. Now that I've experienced it, it's crucial to have travel insurance, because you don't know what could happen, and you don't want to be in that situation where now you're injured and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do next. And so I just wanted to come on. Yes, I'm okay. I pray for everyone. My thoughts and prayers go out to everyone who was impacted by this earthquake. And because I'm in Medellin, it was easy for me to do my part and buy some things for the people who were severely impacted by this earthquake. And I just heard that there was another earthquake in Indonesia. So if you plan to travel, I would definitely get travel insurance, sign up for the STEP program. And if you guys have any questions about travel or anything like that, let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.